Welcome to the weekly Woodcast with Dennis and Michael Woodworth, and we are having our weekly Lumberjack special. Well, weekly, bi-weekly, just depends on what the schedule's like and how things are going. And in studio, of course, we have our general manager, head coach, Brogan Bailey, as well as two players, Cam Brown, who is from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, and Dalton Dunn. That's a sports name right there, buddy.
Thank you.
Dalton Dunn from St. John, New Brunswick. And, like I said to Dalton earlier, it's distinctively, I'm aware that he's definitely from New Brunswick and not from St. John's, Newfoundland. We love Newfoundlanders, man. We love them. So, Lumberjacks report so far in the first couple weeks of the regular season, we are building on a foundation that when a young team like Brogan said earlier, and I'm going to lead right into Brogan first, it's about building those foundational principles that give you a solid foundation for growth in the team. So, Brogan, let's just talk about how far we've come so far in that game plan.
I think pretty far. We had a rough start. Our first two games in Yarmouth, or against Yarmouth, I guess. First one at home, I really thought we could have won. The second one was like we've talked about this as a team, was a kind of a tough loss. And then from there, I think after that loss, we took steps forward in every game. I didn't really like our game yesterday against Truro. Thought we took a lot of good steps forward and then took a step back. But we discussed this as a group, and I've said this in the dressing room to the guys, is that it's as long as it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back occasionally, that's going to happen. I mean, we're going to have nights where we're off, and I think as long as we focus on the process and not so much on the outcome of every particular game, I think that's where we're going to be. That's where our focus should be. And I think from that perspective, it's hard to be really frustrated with our progress so far this year because we've been in every game. We haven't rolled over once. We've shown a lot of good character and in keeping games really, really close. I think we have 3 of those 6 that we've lost by just, if it wasn't a 1-goal game, it was an empty net.
Right.
Actually, well, they've all been within 2 goals or 1 goal with empty nets, except for the 4-0 game in Yarmouth, and that one was just there's a lot of variables there that didn't go our way, and
we covered that in the last
Woodcast.
Yeah,
we covered that in the last one. So it's obviously not how we wanted to start. I mean, nobody goes out there and tries to lose. We've got a lot of good work and practice in, and so it's tough to see that because you're. Obviously, I'm not on the ice with the guys, but I feel the loss is the same way because you're there and you prep through the week with them, so it's all tough.
Well, Brogan, you played at that level, so you know. I mean, you know how these guys feel. When you play at a level like you have and I have and a lot of the coaches that have been, ex-players, you know what it feels like. You know, you may not have ever been 0-6 in your record, but the bottom line is that you know what it feels like. So you have relatability with your players, which is very important.
Yeah. I joked with somebody in the dressing room the other day. I don't know who it was that I've been 0-6 before. I mean, I played for the South Shore Mustangs. So
did I.
So I've been 0-6. I'm not sure if we were 0-6 both years that I played, but we were definitely 0-6 my first year. I think we only ended up winning 3 or 4 games.
We won 2.
Yeah. And then the next year, I think we won 6 or 7. But that's not any place a team wants to be because it becomes tough to not to disconnect yourself from those outcomes and think that, we keep losing, then there must be something fundamentally wrong with us. When if you look at our group, I don't think there is anything fundamentally wrong with us. I mean, we lost debatably one of the best defensemen in the league in game 2, and he hasn't played with us since. We're short another defenseman. He'll be back this weekend. And so when you look at things like that, and our youth too, I told these guys that our youth isn't an excuse to lose games, but it's just a fact that we need to get used to the league and used to the speed. And these guys are used to playing junior hockey, so it might be more frustrating for them to start like this. And I know it's frustrating for everybody, but especially coming off probably a big start last year and knowing what it was like with Cam and Dunner. I'm not actually sure how you guys were last year, but I know Brockville's a good organization, and I know Randy quite well. So it's got to be frustrating no matter where you are and who you play with. So,
well, let's just look back into both your careers. I'll start with Cam. It's funny because when Cam came to the door tonight to come into the studio, I looked at this blonde-haired, scruffy-faced guy, and I said, man, that's Cam Brown from Dartmouth, and, ex-baseball player that obviously is doing pretty well on his skates. So have you ever been in a position before where you started out slow?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
growing up playing for Cole Harbour, we were never really that good of a hockey team. So growing up through Adam and Pee Wee and even Bantam, I think my second year Pee Wee, we were 2-23. So,
well, there you go.
Losing's not something I enjoy doing. It's something I'm used to. And starting 0-6 in junior, especially after what we went through last year, I think we won 15 of the first 20 games.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot different this year for sure.
So you come from an organization that has some pretty infamous hockey players, Sid the Kid and Nate, that both those guys really have been great ambassadors for our game here in Atlantic Canada. Not, well, for the whole country, really. You think about it. So having a chance to play close to home gives you a chance to play in front of family, which I'm sure is something you enjoy.
Yeah, my parents try to get to every game they can. They were in Truro last night at the game. Went out and talked to them before we left back for Bridgewater on the bus.
So Dalton, have you had an opportunity in your career so far to experience something of a slow start in the beginning?
I've kind of been the exact opposite. We've kind of had slow ends. I've been really lucky. My 3 years midget, we come out real strong. I think we were usually above 500, so we were doing pretty good. Last year we came out pretty good. We were really good the first half of the season up to Christmas. We won most of our games. We were ranking on the top 10 in the CJHL. Then after Christmas, we kind of took that downhill slide. So I've really never had to fight through this, so it's kind of tough, not knowing what every guy's going through early. It's really nice to get a win. Once you get that first win, it's really that confidence, we can do this, It's really hard going to the rink every day knowing, man, we got to get one. That pressure is building a little bit, and it's kind of tough, but it's really nice. Everybody's kind of going through the same thing, so it's easy to work through.
Well, that's when you sort it out through family, right? You got to be reliable to each other. You got to be accountable to each other. You have to put extra work in on and off the ice. I try to explain to my guys, if we ever have a situation, which we didn't have a lot of, slow starts, but we always talked about, finding something you can relate to. Now, for me, I don't know if you guys are big basketball fans, but I was, and Michael and I are both huge Laker fans. Kobe Bryant, we all know of Kobe now. He just recently passed away last year. Kobe, when he was young, and he was a very young basketball player that came into the NBA, when they played in their first playoff series, Kobe, in one of the playoff games that they were eliminated from the playoffs in the first round, he threw up 2 air balls in the last game. 2 air balls. And they lost out. Shaquille O'Neal, his teammate, walked up to him, and Kobe was really upset about it. But Shaquille said, you know what? One day, they're going to fear you because you're willing to take those shots. Young kid just was relentless. You know what he did after they lost that playoff game? He went to the gym for 8 hours and shot hoops for 8 straight hours. See, he knew he wanted to bridge the gap quickly. And the only way you bridge the gap on teams is by contributing more time. Now, you only have so much regular ice time per week, right, Brogan? You just can't go into the LCLC and say, hey, we need, an extra this much of ice time. So the bottom line is that what else do you do outside of that? And one of them is learn from other people's experiences that struggle. Learn from them and try to gain a form of relatability so that you can mentally prepare yourself. So that when you go on the ice, that one play, that one situation that you may miss the one-timer to tie the game, you score on the one-timer. Because they are micro things that happen in the game that cause the score to be what they are, right? So, Brooke, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think we're going to do some stuff this week with our video and kind of just discuss some practice habits too. But I think taking an active role in your own development is pretty key. And I try to give the guys that opportunity through the in-stat stuff and the video and the stats that they get through after every game, and to try and look into that and see, how does this relate to a game that I think I played well. So you have that baseline of, well, tonight I played good, right? And maybe you can even come ask the coaching staff, how did I play tonight? And then they can say, yeah, well, you were. I thought you might have been the best game you played all season. And then you can take that baseline and look and see, well, tonight versus that game, how many quality scoring opportunities did I get? Okay, maybe not as many. Or you could say, how many turnovers did I have? Well, maybe more turnovers. I don't look too deep into plus minus, but it's more, the stats that we track are, challenges won, turnovers, quality scoring opportunities. So that's shots from within the house. And then Corsi, which basically is how many shots were you on for? Like how many shots did you generate? And then how many shots were you on for when the other team was generating shots, and then that gives us a number. And if it's positive, it means you are on the ice more for shots that our team generated. If it's negative, then it means you were on the ice more when the other team was generating shots.
Right.
And I find that's a pretty good indication of how a certain player played on a night. More so than goals and assists and things like that. I mean, if you're generating, like Brownie and I had a conversation about this the other day, actually, and just he was a little bit frustrated that he wasn't scoring as much as he thinks he should. But I mean, are those stats? And I've looked at them. I don't know if you have. Are those stats of you getting into good areas on the ice? Are those where they need to be? And if they are, then the goals will come. To focus on the outcome again is maybe a little bit premature when you should be focusing on the process. Am I getting to spots on the ice where I can score goals? And if not, then that's what you need to focus on, not the goals.
Right.
The goals is the end
I agree.
product. So things like that. That's what we're trying to instill in the guys to do that on your own. Be able to go and look at those things and draw your own conclusions and make an accurate assessment of how you are on any given night. And I think if players can be honest with themselves, that's huge. That is massive. If you can analyze yourself night in, night out and determine whether you were good or you weren't good, then that carries through and drives you to be better and better every single day of practice, which is only going to make you and the team better in the long run.
Guys, I'm going to give you some names that I really envy in sport in regards to how not just I'm not talking about individuals outside the game. I'm just talking about players that played the game at a high level. There's two gentlemen that played professionally in the NFL, and they played for the Baltimore Ravens. His name was Ray Lewis, and the safety was Ed Reed. Two of the best football players on their team and in the league and in the history of the league. Ray Lewis was highly undersized as a linebacker, but incredibly intelligent. And he spent so much time in study sessions learning the opponent. He would know what they were doing before they would do it. So I guess the question I have for all of you is, you can see yourself on video, right?
Yeah.
So you can watch yourself. So that's the first thing you invest time in. Once you do that, I think, and you take notes, right? That's the other thing, is actually taking notes on what you're watching. And then the next thing is watching your opponent. Do you watch your opponent? So what positions do you guys play?
I've been playing forward,
Right?
And
a little bit of D.
Right? Brownie?
I play forward. Doesn't
Okay,
center wing.
Okay, so if you walk into a game, your next game is, whatever, it doesn't matter what opponent it is, but if you, and I asked your teammates the last time we were in here, Brogan, is that, what do you do on your free time? And the first thing that Ozzy says is Fortnite, right? Which we love Ozzy, right? He's a leader of the team. He's performed at a high level with different organizations. But I really made some constructive comments to him, because the reality is that If you have time to play Fortnite, you have time to study your opponent. Now, if you know, Brownie, that you're going against a certain team and you know their defensemen so well that they're going to do certain things habitually, then you can get a mental approach that gives you an advantage. You study their weaknesses. You write down their weaknesses. And then what you do, what Ray Lewis did that was brilliant, is he brought his teammates into the film session. So they studied together. So once you analyze yourselves and write your notes, then the next thing is analyze your opponent. But get your guys to come together to kind of help your team, help your coaching staff find those little cracks that you need. And then all of a sudden, there's win number one. There's win number two. Because you're doing things when other teams aren't. I think that's the most important thing that I ever related to any of my players was if you're spending that time intellectually to study your opponent, I bet you most teams in the league don't do that. So does that give you an advantage? Does that bridge the gap? And the answer to that question is always yes. Always. So I'm a big fan, okay? I was the on-ice announcer and operations of all the on-ice operations for the Lumberjacks for years. So I'm a huge fan, and I want the organization to do well. You know, Tom Brady's playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, but I know he watches New England every game and see how well they're doing because you want to see organizations do well. But you also want to see, and I can tell you from your coach's perspective, that your coach wants you to do well on the ice and off the ice in your lives. So we've got to find a way intellectually to use that time productively. And I think that if we do that as an organization, you'll see just a few things you need to get through the cracks, right? Yep. So, Dalton, let's just talk about some of your favorite coach. I'm not, other than Brogan, because you only had Brogan for a short period of time right now, right?
Yeah.
But growing up in minor hockey, tell me about who was your favorite coach and why.
My favorite coach after my Bantam coach, his name's Alex Carter. I really liked him because he really worried about like what the other team was doing, how we can counter them in practice. Our practice schedule was pretty much the same. Tuesday would be flow drills, a little bit of one-on-ones, two-on-ones. Wednesdays we started getting some team stuff, figuring how we're going to break out against this team's forecheck, that sort of thing. And he really kind of pulled it all together. We had guys that were kind of like nobodies, and all of a sudden these guys had big roles to play. They're stepping up to the plate. He really found the way to get the best of everybody. And it was really just a good feeling go to the rink knowing like, yeah, the coach has got my back, he knows what we're doing. Everybody really trusted him. It wasn't a thing like he said run through the wall. Everybody said like, when do I stop running? And everyone just started taking off.
I love it.
Everybody really trusted him. It was good. It was fun. And we ended up winning a provincial championship that year. And then we went to the Atlantics where we lost in the finals to St. John's, Newfoundland. And
St. John versus St. John's.
Yeah, it was quite the matchup.
You don't see that very often. Cam, what about yourself? Cole Harbor.
I wish I had a Bantam coach like that, man. Gosh, would have been nice. I'm gonna have to go with my my coach from third year midget, Tim Boyce.
Yeah, I know Tim.
Yeah, we made it to the TELUS Cup that year, and we did that by analyzing what the other teams would do, as their forecheck and their back check, and we played the trap that year on defense.
Yeah.
So he made sure that everyone on the team was buying into the trap because we had a lot of like third years that year. So a lot of them wanted to just go down the ice and score a goal, but he got everyone to buy into the system and to play the trap against the teams, and it worked. Like we made it to TELUS. We beat the eventual champions that year. We played them the very first game, and we beat them by 1 goal. I only got 1 goal on us, so it ended up working. So.
Well, the thing is that you got to take those life experiences you've had and put them to use.
Yeah.
Right? And you help your coaching staff out. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. I've known these guys for a long time, but the bottom line is that Dick Vermeil was a great NFL. Why do I keep going to the NFL? But anyway, he was a great coach that didn't listen to his players very often. Great motivational guy, very emotional. But when he started to listen to his players more, they won the Super Bowl. Kurt Warner, his quarterback, said when our coach started to listen, not to everything they say, but just constructive feedback, we can all come up with a solution. doesn't have to be one person, but it can be one group, right, Brogan?
Yeah. I try to talk to the guys quite a bit, and just more so to see how they're feeling on any given days and let them know that I actually genuinely care about what's going on in their lives past hockey. But right now the focus is firmly on hockey because obviously we want to try and get that first win. But I think it's super important to keep those lines of communication open. Like I said, Brownie and I had a discussion. When was that? Friday? Is that Thursday? Thursday, just over text message. I had another talk with a player today, just talking about ice time and how we could get more of it. And I always like guys who come in and ask to see video and, can you break down some video with me? And I'd like that I feel like, I don't know about other coaches. I mean, it is time consuming from a coach's standpoint, but it's well worth my time if a guy wants to go out of his way and ask me to do something.
100%.
And it definitely doesn't make me upset when guys ask for those things. If anything, it's reassuring that they want to take that time where they could be playing Fortnite and go and work on something and watch video of themselves and receive criticism and I don't want to. It's not always criticism, especially I think it's super important with video that you show guys stuff they do right, because you may pick out 2 or 3 mistakes in a game, and we have as humans, I feel like a negative bias towards those negative actions that we take, and so as a coach, you always if you look at my game card after any game, I write down timestamps, but most of the time they're of things that guys do wrong. And you want to show the team that, listen, this is what we can't do this. Like, this is what we don't want to do. But at the same time, is that actually being productive to the group? If you keep showing them things that they do wrong, no, probably not. You're way better off to show them something that they've done right, or show them the way that an NHL team does it. And I've tried to incorporate that quite a bit this year, showing the guys our systems that we do, how they're performed at the highest level of hockey and what they look like when they're done correctly and what those results are. So we've watched Philadelphia's forecheck. We've watched Tampa Bay's penalty kill. We watch how Tampa Bay moves in the offensive zone, things like that. And I think, and I don't know, you guys can talk to this more so than I can, but I think they appreciate I think everybody appreciates not getting called out in a video session. And I think they also appreciate seeing other teams and seeing how things are done at a different level.
Yeah, well, I mean, last year we did one video session the entire year, and it was at the very start of the year, and all he did was just point out all the negative things that people were doing in the video session. And so far this year, I don't know how many times we've done videos so far.
At least once or twice a week.
Yeah, once or twice a week, and it helps us going into a game because
absolutely,
just reiterating what the penalty kill is or what the forecheck is, it just gets it into our mind for the next game that we have.
Well, how much does it matter? I mean, are you just? I always try to explain to the players I coached, it has to matter. We play in a sport that every game matters. If it doesn't, you shouldn't play. Yeah. You should go do something else, right? So if you're going to invest the time, invest what it takes to make it happen. You have to say, I have to do whatever it takes for this group to succeed. If we're on the ocean as a group and it's rough waters, right? Are we all going down underneath saying, oh my God, the waters are so rough? I want guys on the deck rowing the oars, listening to the general, giving the direction so that we can get out of the situation. And we're in a storm right now. We're in an 0-6 storm. Now, the one thing I would say, and I don't know how Brogan feels about this, I just play like we're 6-0. I think 0-6 is hold the stick a little tighter, just try a little bit too much, right? When things are going good, it almost falls on your stick at the right time. Boom, you barely got to touch the puck and it goes in the net, right? So play like you're 6-0, right? Go in the dressing room, guys. We're 6-0. Let's go. Let's keep building on this. Some of the teammates you think you're crazy, but it's all frame of mind, right? And then when you play that loose and you take the knowledge that coaching staff I know gives you, there's no question in my mind that the puck goes your way more often. But if you're playing the opposite way, 0-6, it's tight, it's tense. You get on the bench, you give up the first goal of the game. All of a sudden, oh my God, here we go again, and that's when you'll never succeed, because you'll only think when you win the first game is we were lucky. So you're 6-0 in your mind right now. The key is, are you doing the things that a 6-0 team would do? If you were competing against Sidney Crosby's team in the junior league or Nathan McKinnon's team in the junior league, what do you think they'd be doing? What do you think they'd be doing? So that's got to be the frame of mind, the Lumberjack way, if you want to call it that. And I foresee this guy here coaching for us for quite some time until somebody else knocks on his door and says, we want you to go somewhere else. And I hope that's not sooner, even though I know that it would be nice for you. But for our organization, we need that solid foundation. And it comes from the coaching staff first, and we go from there. So play like you're 6-0. You know, if you're on the mound and you're, you know, I always thought, hey, pitch like you like Zach Zink's a great example. Like, pitch like you can't be touched, and it's, you know, you're always ahead. You're always ahead. And it was amazing how consistent he was, because he just relaxed.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, he wasn't bad, you know. So, you know, what's our next scheduled games coming up?
Thursday in Pictou, and then Saturday in Summerside.
So, Summerside, we finally get to go.
Yeah, so the way that schedule kind of got, I think, hashed out was when the scheduling was happening, there was an outbreak in
Campbellton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So New Brunswick was having some difficulties, and PEI didn't want the provincial powers that be didn't want
the drive-through.
Yeah. But now the midget league's happening, right? There's no hiccups with the midget league, and they're a New Brunswick PEI mix.
Good.
But the way that our schedule was worked and when it got put out, the Summerside, the provincial government would allow Summerside to come to Nova Scotia because everything was pretty quiet, but they wouldn't allow them to go to New Brunswick. So Summerside schedule, like when they played us on, when was that? Friday. Yeah, that was only their second game. So they're a little bit behind. And
I noticed that in the results and standings. That it's
a
big
little bit
difference there.
And Campbellton just played.
Yeah, just started on Friday.
Yeah.
And they played 3-3 this weekend to try and get them kind of back in the swing of things.
That's tough for them.
Ooh,
it's going to be a tough road, right? So they got a lot of digging to do, and it's not going to be easy. Hockey's a tough game for recuperation. I mean, you start taking some beatings or just physical, like it's such a physical game, and you exert so much energy. If you don't get that rest time, it's tough. That's where injuries come from, right? So you know, we come out of this with a mindset that, and I know that you say, okay, if we can just win one of these, right? No, win both, and just go in with that mindset that we deserve it. Every time you step on the ice, you deserve it. Every practice you have, you deserve it, right? Yeah. The last two guys to come in here, when your coach writes something on a wall, right, you need to read it, and you need to put it in your soul. I didn't make that comment in the last video.
No, you didn't, no.
When your coach writes something down, what go ahead.
I was going to say, are you going to ask him what's on the wall?
Well, what's on the wall?
I mean, 3 of the words are behind me, but I don't remember the other ones.
He's not wrong. He sits in a bad spot, but
doesn't matter. You got to know them word for word, verbatim, boys, because if you can't incorporate into your game if you don't put the work in, and a mental part of it is huge. He's writing it down for a team motto. It's a team mindset, and if the team doesn't even know what's written on the wall, that just shows that we're not going in the right direction together as a group, right? Like, I can tell you some of the greatest teams ever had affirmation quotes all over the stadium, all over the arena, and their best players every game, boom. They physically touch those affirmation quotes because they breathe it, they live it. It's their mindset, right? So I want the next group that comes in, the next boys come in next week. The homework for me is that everybody knows what those affirmation quotes are.
Dunner, do you know them?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
All I know
One of
is
them's trust.
Yeah.
Brogan, go ahead.
One of them's trust, yeah.
all I know is you got some weird Roman numeral thing in your office.
Yeah, no, that's a Latin saying.
That's a Latin saying, which is very important, and you should know what it means. You should ask him. If I was playing for Brogan, the first thing I say to my coach, Coach, what does that mean?
I've told you, right?
Yeah.
You did, the very first week of the season.
All I can remember is when Brogan was telling me, he goes, does anyone know their Latin? I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I do in my free time.
Yeah, the saying in the coach's room is facta non verba, which means actions, not words.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Right.
And the quote on the wall that you might be able to see the one quote, that one, Brownie, that one's don't let your talent take you someplace that your character can't keep you.
Yeah.
And then there's 4 other words there: trust, or progression, trust, pride, and integrity are the 4 big words that are on the inside of the dressing room. And yeah, like you said, the kind of the affirmation and everybody hitting one. We've got one that's supposed to be up right beside the dressing room door coming out that we haven't got yet. Kind of an ode to Notre Dame football kind of thing, but
Absolutely.
yeah. So hopefully that gets up shortly.
We use the word team. There's acronyms for each one of the letters. So you have together, everyone achieves more. Right? And for me, the together is the big part. And what I mean by that is that the leader of a team or the leadership group, the few guys that are those leaders, need to motivate those other players on their team to go to another level or two. Well, how do you do that? I mean, that's the thing about this whole process is you can't just be yourself, because being yourself right now is not enough, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to talk to you as a coach. I'm trying to talk to you as someone who has coached at a high performance level, but also as a fan. Because a part of this product that we have as the Lumberjack product, the one thing I'm really proud of you guys is I watch the scores of every game. I look at all your stats and stuff like that. They're all close games, which means they're entertaining. And part of watching a hockey game is being entertained, coming to the rink and just enjoying the game. Now, everyone loves being part of a winner. Most people in that rink have never played on a winner. A lot of those people have never played hockey, right? So the reality is they don't know the work that goes into it. All they want to do is see a good product on the ice that represents our community. And you guys are doing that so far. But I want that 6-0 mentality, right? We're 6-0, boys. And be loose. Practice like you're 6-0. And you know, because you've been 6-0 before on other teams.
Yeah.
Right? So you're still the same guys, but it's all a mindset. And when you change the mindset, seeing I don't know why, but things seem to go your way. It's called rhythm. You get in your rhythm of the game, and it just flows. It almost slows down for you sometimes, where it just because you studied so well, you know your opponent so well, because you've done way more than they have, you have the advantages that they don't. So your skill, because you're young, may not be equal to some teams that are older. But if they don't put the time into it, go do all the other little things, and you'll see the results. I've studied so many people in sports and read their books and watched their documentaries and learned from them. And I can tell you, excellence comes from preparation and expecting to succeed. That's the bottom line. So you put on that jersey, which like that logo right there, it takes me back to a lot of guys that have put on the jersey. And I know my initial interview with Brogan, he was very honest with not just me, but our fan base and everyone else, that this is going to be a process, right? And I buy into that. When the general manager and head coach sits in my podcast studio and says, hey, this is what's going to go down, and you need to be this, then I have to buy in. Because he has been successful in this sport more than one time. So I'm trusting him. Now I got to trust the players, right? So dig into that a little bit in regards to, the possibility of what may need to happen over the next couple of weeks to start seeing a few W's?
I think we talked a little bit about the trust piece last game in Truro, and it's not there yet. I don't think everybody trusts one another yet in the group, and that goes for those guys and me, and that's on ultimately coaching staff to make sure that they know that we have their best interest in mind, and the systems that we are going to put in place and have put in place are going to work. And that's part of the process is trust doesn't happen overnight, and it's also something that needs to be groomed constantly and earned and re-earned, and it's not a light switch thing. It doesn't just flip on and flip off. It's something that's developed, but at the same time, I think we have a pretty solid core of guys that are firmly planted in the process and are willing to go through that process of developing trust and the respect of their teammates and the coaching staff and vice versa. And so that's why things I think are, I'm not panicked. I haven't been from the start. I'm not a big believer at, we need to move a whole bunch of guys out and shake things up and do those things. I mean, I think there's probably going to be personnel changes as
well. It was 10-0 Brogan.
Yeah.
Or when we played.
Yeah.
For the Mustangs, there was some games we were just totally outmatched. We only had one line, maybe 1.5 lines that actually could compete at that level.
Yeah.
The scores that you guys are having are not, indicative that a lot of people have to move.
No, and that'll be the only indication of if somebody does need to end up getting moved is, do we get the feeling and do your teammates get the feeling that you're not willing to buy into this process? And if you're not, then that's the reason you got to go. It's more so about that and buying into what we're trying to sell and how we're trying to kind of shift the culture of the organization. And the thing that will frustrate me most if guys go off on their own page and become selfish and say, wow, well, we're not going to deal with this. Well, I think I know best, and what I know is what's going to work, and I'll do that, and everything else will take care of itself. Well, no, that's not how it works. You have to be willing to sacrifice for your teammates and do different things that, other guys, like you said, on other teams might not be willing to do, and that's, sit through some pre-scouts and sit through video sessions with me. And, as long as I'm feeling like you're trying to constantly improve yourself, and you're pushing the bus in the right direction, then you won't have any problems with me. And I've told these guys that from the get-go. As long as I see effort and a willingness to improve and to make our team better, it's kind of like an all or nothing principle. And then you're good. I don't have problems with those types of players.
It's fun.
Both of these guys are those types of players.
Well, that's why they're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You talk about pushing the bus. In 1988, we literally had to push a bus. The Mustangs were going to Cape Breton for an opening weekend tournament, an evaluation tournament. Gilbert Langell was our general manager at the time, and Mosier Motors was our sponsor. And we had an old school bus, a clunker of a school bus that took us to Cape Breton, and it broke down. And we had to push the bus to the gas station. So if two guys get out of that bus, I was the first guy to jump out, right? And a few of the guys went with me, right? And then I'm like, guys, this is a school bus, man. This is not like a car that two guys can push. And if you're sitting in the bus, there's more weight in the bus.
You're part of the problem,
right?
Not part of the solution.
So you got to get out and push. And when you look at that analogy in life, Steve Harvey's a guy that's the host of Family Feud, but he's written some really good books, and he's talked about the wagon story, where if you have a dream or a vision, if you're pulling the wagon, you want people to be out of the wagon, pushing the wagon with you to push your dream faster. You don't want people jumping in the wagon. So the bottom line is if the bus breaks down or it's breaking down, get out and push. right? And all of you do it at the same time. And it was amazing when you just said that. That automatically brought that story back in my head. And it was all the guys got out, the Kenny Lords of the world, and my brother, and many, 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 many others, Bartley Sawatsky, and so many others that jumped out and pushed that bus. So it was, it taught us a lot about being a team.
Yeah, I also kind of got the same story where it was my first year midget. We were going up to Fredericton to play a game. We just stopped in St. John to pick up a few guys, and we go to pull out of the rink, and this bus driver really doesn't know what's going on. He drives right into the snowbank. We're so far in the snowbank, it's not even funny. So all the guys get out there laughing, going, haha, this guy's crazy, drove us into a snowbank. And then we kind of shoveled a little bit. We stole some shovels from the Hilton, right from their front door. We just kind of took them and started shoveling, and everybody got behind. Everybody's in suits. It's like -10. They're all pushing and shoving and laughing and going on like a bunch of fools. We never did get the bus moving. It was stuck. We had to get a tow truck came, and everybody laughed. And it's kind of what we talked about throughout the rest of the season. That was kind of that one moment everyone's like, man.
Remember the bus?
Yeah. And looking back, I met a guy this summer, and he goes, man, I was just talking to this guy the other day, and, he was driving through St. John, and he's seen these guys pushing a bus. And I was like, well, that was me. That was me pushing the bus. And we kind of had a laugh, and it was, it was something to look back on and be like, man, like, that was just a good time.
Well, we talked about this last time, is your book is like, your life is like a book, and each year is a chapter, right? This is going to be a good chapter if you put the time into it, because the beginning of the chapter is going to be rough, right? So you had some really good chapters in your life up until a certain age. Now this chapter, how old are you now, Cam?
19.
So you're 19, Dalton?
I'm 19 as well.
So 19 years old. So you're in your 19th chapter of your book. And the chapter starts out that, you're going to Bridgewater to play for the Lumberjacks Junior A Hockey Club. And then, you're dealing with this adversity. Now, if I'm reading your book, I want to see how the rest of the chapter goes. Right? That's the bottom line. And teach me what you did to make the end of that chapter a success. Write down in the pages. You have a chance right now to physically write down what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Game plan with your coaching staff, how that's going to be done, but make the end of the chapter worth reading. It's important. It really is. So I constantly say this to Michael. It's funny because Michael played high school basketball, and the 1 year they played in high school basketball, they had a completely different team, a really big team, like, a bunch of big guys, and they ran a different type of offense and defense, and then they lost all their big guys, and they were just a small team the next year, and everybody thought in the team, we're not going to do well. They were the best team that we ever had almost in the whole school's history because they played it a different way, right? And Michael could tell you, they worked so hard. They believed in the process so much that in practices they threw up. That they would put 100 and, well, really only something can give you about 110 or 120% when you talk about percentages, because you can only break through the wall so far. But if you could say 1,000%, it kind of gives you a gauge of how hard they worked, right? And that's the work you put into it, physically and mentally, right? Because they played a type of defense that was just relentless and could not be matched. Because physically they could outwork teams because they were in the best shape against any other team, and they were relentless, especially on defense. So the chapter's not over, and we're 6-0 mentality. So we're going in the holiday season, which is usually a festive season, but it's tough. How are you guys doing with COVID? I mean, how are things going? Like, let's talk about your billets. I want to ask you about your billets. Who are you billeting with?
We're with Dave and Jen Moore. We live in Upper Northfield.
Yeah.
I mean, they're interesting people.
Yeah.
They work a lot. Dave's been retired, what, 3 times now?
Yeah, if that, maybe more.
I'll tell you one thing about a billet. Someone that's willing to take in guys like you at the age that you're at, it's courageous, really.
Or crazy.
Well, I mean, you're guys, right? So the bottom line is that I want to commend all the billets that have supported the organization over the years. It's a big part, Brogan, because if you don't have that support, you have to have some kind of comfortability at home. If you don't, then they're dragging all that baggage with them to practice, and makes it your job even harder.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, like you said, I mean, I've had to convince a few people and have done so successfully, but it's a difficult conversation to have with people. Like, at first, they're kind of like, yeah, right, I'm not gonna do that. But it helps. It helps, and it helps if you have people that have kind of understood the process and how these guys operate on a day-to-day basis. And the few people that I've convinced have been guys that have been in hockey and understand that they've billeted once, and they kind of want to give back in a way that, is beneficial to the organization in a massive way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's, God bless them, because I know what I was like at 19. Even I think I was pretty reasonable. I know I was pretty reasonable compared to some of the guys that were on that were in the group that I was with.
Yeah, for sure.
But still, it was still a lot to ask of somebody.
It is.
And so, my billet was, I lived with Joyce Smith. She was an older lady from Woodstock.
Mm-hmm.
She had lost her husband probably 4 or 5 years prior, and just wanted some guys in the house that she could feel a little bit more safe.
Right.
And I always told my mom, like, I don't want to come home because then I actually have to do more chores. So it was way worse. I was treated far better at my billet house than I was at home.
I love it.
And so, yeah, she was fantastic. Just would always have breakfast ready for us in the morning. We used to practice at 11 o'clock, so she would always have breakfast ready for us. And I lived with Brad Tesink, who coached Dunn. So she would always get up before us in the morning and have breakfast ready. We practiced at 11, and then I would work out, and Brad would go home because Brad didn't work out. And so
notice to Brad.
And so he would Brad Tesink's our head scout now. So
fantastic.
Yeah, we got to keep that relationship going. We've kept in touch.
And he's still not at the gym?
No.
Yeah.
He's we're not going to speculate on Brad's weight, but he's definitely not in the gym. So she would have 3 square meals for us ready. And she never ate with us once.
Wow.
She would always just let us eat at the kitchen table, and then I don't know when she ate. Still to this day, Brad and I talk about it. We don't know when she ate food or if she ate at all, but she never ate with us. She'd always say, this is your guys' time to kind of wind down. And she would just sit there and talk to us sometimes, or then go in and watch TV. But yeah, it was, and she did all of our laundry, would make the beds. It was kind of like surreal when I got there and was like, I can't believe this is what a billet is like.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
They're not all as spectacular as that.
Of course,
but,
I mean,
and she went.
It's her personality.
She went above and beyond, and it was. I still try and go back and see her every time I'm in Woodstock.
That's good, man. I love it.
She was invited to my wedding, so it was. It's just somebody that I always try and keep in touch with.
Well, I know, like the Whalens, Victor and Andrea, and the Roders, which is Tammy and Chris, and a lot of those people that over the years have been billets. Carolyn Butler-Getzen's been billet many times. So they become extended families. They genuinely love the players that come. They try to teach you. They try to treat you like family. And they love the organization. They've been there a long time. And so those volunteers, and it takes a whole group of volunteers to make this club work. I mean, to actually have everyone on payroll would be almost impossible for a junior A hockey club. I don't know if a junior A hockey club would have, I don't think there'd be one that have everyone on the payroll.
No, I don't think there's anybody in Canada that would have a full payroll.
No
I mean,
way.
Amherst might be able to do it, but they've been pretty successful with some just fundraising that they've done through it. I think it's a toonie draw, isn't it? That's what they have. Yeah, they're just like crazy successful in terms of how much money they were bringing in, and so they've been able to recycle that into the organization and kind of make everything a little bit easier and on them financially. But I think most teams in Canada are running on the same kind of budget that we would be, and that most of the teams in this league would be through. Just, you have staff, coaching staff getting paid, and then you're relying on volunteers, and here we like to compensate our billets.
Of course,
because we feel they're a crucial part of our organization. So it's junior hockey it's not a moneymaker.
No,
never has been.
Not many owners buy a junior hockey team to make a bunch of money.
No,
I can tell you that.
Never will be, and even at the major junior level, you have
It's not.
I mean, unless you're
there's very few Moosehead organizations.
There's very few. I would wager to say there might be 6 that do anywhere near 6 across Canada that have the kind of budget and payroll and kind of revenue on a yearly basis that the Halifax Mooseheads do. I'm not sure if there would be any that would be better than they are.
They're the model.
Yeah.
There's no question. And I actually have the mayor of the town of Bridgewater and the mayor of the municipality coming in on Wednesday. And one of the conversations I'm going to bring up is the hockey organization and how we can, as to the municipality and the town, buy into the club. How can we financially create a better budget for this hockey team? The team itself, the brand, the Lumberjacks, is necessary for our community. It's a brand that we want to keep. Now we have to be able to. And I love the Green Bay Packer philosophy. I love what the Packers do in football, where they own the team. They're shareholders. So for someone like myself who spends half of the year in the Caribbean coaching baseball, I would love to be a shareholder of the hockey team. It doesn't have to be a large amount, but whatever amount I choose to do, I contribute to the hockey club. There's many elderly people in our community that have been successful in business that if they were given the opportunity might take advantage of the opportunity to help, but they've never been asked. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things I'm going to talk to the mayor and the mayors of both parts on Wednesday, so that it's something that we don't have to walk on broken glass every year. Like, we're on that fine line all the time. I just want to push through the gates and say, all right, we can do whatever it takes. I mean, within a certain level of realism. I mean, I don't want guys breaking hockey sticks over the boards every time they miss a shot, right? I mean, that's just something that's not acceptable because those hockey sticks are not $8 anymore, right? So,
no.
So that, you want to keep that in consideration because it takes a lot of moving parts to make this thing happen, right? But I am going to bring it up to them, and that's come from people in the community that have come to me and say, hey, Dennis, like, what about this? What about this idea? And I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea. And when I hear a great idea, I'm like, well, then I'm going to get a hold of the mayors and find out. And that's exactly what I did. I said, I want you both to come to the studio. I have lots to talk about. And not just the Lumberjacks. That's going to be a portion of the conversation. Also celebrating all the people on the front line that have helped us through this pandemic. I mean, you see them even in the community here in Bridgewater, people at the grocery stores and people at the banks and people at the restaurants and all those essential services that we get that people are exposed to. And this time of year isn't going to get easier.
No.
Because every flu bug will be called COVID. Anyway, so what are you guys doing? You're working out? Are you guys training at all? Obviously, there's physical training. So Joel's?
Yep.
Yeah, 902 Athletics.
Yeah,
perfect place to go.
So Joel and I had started a new facility down in the field house.
Right.
And when I took this job, we approached Vince Lucente of ASP.
I know Vince. Yeah.
To kind of move in and take that over. And so Vince has done that, and he's done a spectacular job, and Vince works with the guys.
High performance. What is it? What's it? Vince?
Vince is ASP, so Atlantic Sport Performance. Yeah.
Does a good job.
Yeah, he does a great job. So he's a asset that we were just lucky to get. And I know Brownie had me in the gym last year, and so it was there was zero chance that they were going to get me again because you see enough of me. You don't need to see me.
Yeah, it's a valid point.
You don't need to see me in the gym too. And Vince is, I'm not afraid to say Vince is a better trainer than I am. He just has, he has more experience. He has more knowledge. He's done it longer, and he's,
and the thing is, you can only do so much, Brogan.
Yeah.
You only have so much energy every day. And Joel said this in his podcast when he was here, is that he couldn't, in his business do everything. So he had to empower others to do for him in his model, in his business model. So absolutely, I mean, you did the right thing, right?
Yeah, and Vince is a super positive person as well. Like I don't think I've ever seen him frown once.
So he's motivated all the time. I love that. A trainer needs to be that, right?
Yeah, like, he's a different breed of positivity.
If somebody's not doing something right in the gym, he'll just come over with a big old smile on his face and tell you what you're doing wrong. And it's just a nice feeling not to be yelled at all the time.
Yeah.
Not that he did that, but I'm talking more coaching staff last year.
You know, I mean,
in the gym.
But I mean, the reality is we all reach players different ways. If Brogan was a big yeller, and I wasn't as a coach, even though I had a pretty, I could project my voice at quite a large volume.
I do remember that, trying out for I don't remember what year it was, baseball in Bridgewater,
Absolutely, right? So I can do it when I motivate my players, but if you do it all the time, they tone you out because it becomes normal. So my process was always be positive-minded and energetic, but don't, raise that volume until it's necessary, because then at least I'll make an impact when I do. So, but that's experience too. Like you learn that through your own practical experience. And we talked about that, Brogan and I talked about in the first podcast about who you learn from and what you learn and how do you incorporate that all into your own style and all those kind of things. So, no, I see all positive pieces, and I just want the fan base to really get to know you guys and sit in studios so that, because they only see you with your helmets on and your gear on, right? And it's good to know where you're from and what you've seen. And I hope somebody in the rink comes up to you, Dalton, and say, "Hey, push a bus for me, Dalton," right? Because it means they're listening to podcasts and they're paying attention, right? So I just thank you guys for contributing, and I just want you to continue to work hard. But I want you to do a little bit more. Just push a little harder, a little bit more. Think of guys like Ray Lewis. Think of guys like Ed Reed that go out and give the team a better chance to win, because that team in Baltimore had to beat the New England Patriots every year. And that was one strong organization. And those guys knew that. So to beat the best, they had to go to a whole different level. And our goal, like you said, is to win. You had lots of success last year, and I foresee the same type of product through this process.
You're right. Yep. Yep. Maybe we'll have to watch Ray Lewis montage this week.
Bring it up in a video.
Yeah, and he has YouTube film sessions where he'll show you how intense it was, and he mentored a lot of people. Like he really did. He was a study junkie. Other guys, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning would know what teams were going to do before they ever did it. I mean, when you can actually anticipate someone doing something before they do it, and you have the edge, it's over. It's over. But if you don't know and you robotically go through what you do every time, right? If they're studying you, they have the advantage. So film session's huge. And I know Brogan talked about that in the very first podcast. He said, we have the ability to watch ourselves now, which is really cool. And it reminds me of a time I was in St. Andrews hockey school, a couple 100 years ago. And they had a video, VHS at that time. And we were skating around the ice, and we were doing drills. And it was just a simple skate around the ice drill, but you had to do so many laps, and they would actually videotape all of us doing it, and some kids were taking shortcuts. So they weren't going all the way around the pylons. They were cutting through the pylons because they thought no one was watching. And then they showed us the video. Wow.
Pretty embarrassing.
Damn right it was.
Yeah.
Right? So I always told my players, here or in the Caribbean, play like you're always playing in front of scouts, because you're gonna give 1,000%. If you know there's a scout in the rink or in the bleachers watching your performance, how would you perform? How would you act? Would you take that stupid penalty? Right? Would you do those things? No, you wouldn't. So if you wouldn't do it then, why would you do it when they're not watching? That's a level of excellence. It's a mindset, right? I want to thank you guys for coming into the studio, sharing some of your thoughts. And the Lumberjack fans are behind you, all right? I want to see you guys have a great holiday season. We're going to have a couple more of these before that happens, but especially for you two guys, because Brogan probably won't bring you in every week to the podcast. I want to thank both of you for coming in and spending time with our fan base, because that's who watches these videos. And I can tell you the fans are actually, they come up to me almost every day. I have another fan that say, hey, I watched that podcast. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to meet some of the players. But I want you to do one thing for me tonight. Go home to your billet and say thank you for doing this for us, because they deserve it.
You're right.
All right. So it's Dennis and Michael Woodworth here on the weekly Woodcast with Lumberjack personalities, headed up by the general manager and head coach, Brogan Bailey. Look forward to the next podcast in a week or two, and go Lumberjacks.